In this lesson, we are discussing the question, does practicing guitar for hours and hours every day make you improve faster? And I get tons of people submitting questions to me every day about this topic, and it usually comes in one of two forms. Either one, do I need to practice for hours and hours every day to get better at guitar or to get good at guitar? Or the second question, I already practice for hours and hours every day, but I don't seem to be improving. So very important questions, and we're going to dive into a lot of detail about it today. What I'm going to do in this video, though, is I'm going to first give you a generalized answer, and then I'm going to take a look at 6 different elements about your practicing that matter more than the amount of time that you actually practice. These topics are proper musical knowledge and technique, so actually, knowing the knowledge that you need to know, appropriate materials for maintenance and improvement, your intention to improve, which is actually very important, don't underestimate that one, having maximum concentration and accuracy, and also the idea of relaxation plus ergonomics plus musical knowledge and appreciation go a long way as well. And finally, at the end of the video, I'll also discuss how much practice time is enough practice time. So let's talk about my generalized answer first. So does practicing hours and hours every day make you improve a guitar faster, or is it needed to get really good? The answer is yes and no, but mainly I would say a cautionary no. But I don't want to give students the wrong idea. Learning an instrument does take a certain amount of time and a certain amount of dedication to improve at it. So it's very important that you understand that it does take a certain amount of time. However, more important than the amount of time that you practice is the quality of your practice time itself. Essentially, the basic idea is that if you practice poorly for hours, you will get very, very good at playing poorly. And we'll be discussing that in just a little bit. So again, the quality of your practice time is more important than the amount of time that you actually practice. Of course, we have to put those two together to find a happy medium. Make sure you've also looked at my full article on how to organize your practice session. So what kind of things should be in your practice session. That's not what today's lesson is about, but of course that's hugely important. Having a technique routine and etudes and new repertoire and method book stuff and improvement sections, organizing your practice session is super important along with the amount of time and the quality level. If you're enjoying the lessons, make sure you're subscribed, but also you can support these free lessons by visiting the support page. There's a link for that in the description, so you can check that out if you like. One more generalized answer to this question is that we must understand that practicing itself is actively improving your music and improving your technique with a focused problem-solving intention. The act of just playing guitar is just enjoying the results of your practice. So practicing and playing are really different things. They're different endeavors. Also keep in mind that as you become more advanced, the importance of practicing technique goes up quite a bit. Because practicing technique, as long as that technique is musical, is like practicing all of your repertoire. So by practicing a small amount of technique exercises, it's kind of like exposing your hands and your mind and your body and your musicality to a wide variety of repertoire. So it's kind of like practicing all repertoire. And long-term results can often be, better found in increased technique practice time, as long as that technique practice is in fact musical. It's not just like blank slate, like technique work. It does have to be musical. So let's go through the different elements now in more detail. So proper musical knowledge and technique. Playing something wrong or practicing something wrong will only make you very good at playing it wrong. So if I practice for hours, but my technique looks like this, will will that make me better? If I practice it for hours and hours, all I'm doing is solidifying the muscle memory of playing with this bad hand position rather than playing it really well, right? So if that required me to practice for a smaller amount of time, but really concentrate on my hand position while I'm practicing, that would be a better use of my time. I'll be programming good muscle memory into my technique rather than bad muscle memory. So I can practice less, but have much better results. Now, of course, as a student, we talk about musical knowledge and technique, but as a student, you might not know all of the answers to all of the questions, right? You might not know the smallest details of what good technique means. So of course, this is at the best of your ability. But it comes down to more of an idea of like, you need to be focused towards playing your best to the best of your ability and to the best of your knowledge. And also, before you practice, maybe that means increasing your knowledge, watching some videos on my lesson page, for example, or on some other lesson page, or making sure you think back to what your teacher said during your lesson and really apply what they said into your practicing. So it's all within your ability. This also goes for other musical knowledge as well. It's not just technique, but it's also your ability to think in terms of phrasing and your music theory knowledge. There's lots of knowledge that we can put into our practice time. And we want to make sure we're utilizing all of the different elements that we've learned. But of course, doing it properly rather than wrong is so important. Okay, second topic is appropriate materials for maintenance and improvement. So you need appropriate materials for your actual level and skill set. If you're practicing material that's way beyond your ability, has these bars and stretches and things like that, and you're not ready for that, that's not necessarily good for you either, because what that does is it puts your hands in a compromised position before you've learned a good hand position and good muscle memory. So if you're practicing material that's beyond your level, you could be trashing your musical, your actual technique, but also your musicality, because it might be so difficult that you're not able to apply good phrasing and things like that. So you won't be learning good habits or building up a strong foundation for what you're doing. So appropriate materials. Also, in terms of playing with relaxation, if you're playing material beyond your level, you might not be able to relax while you play, and you're building up bad muscle memory in that regard as well. The other thing, though, is you need certain material for maintaining your technique. So, like, every day I'll go through my scales and my arpeggios, and I'll do some, finger independence exercises and slurs and bar. But I'll also focus on specific elements that I need to improve. So if I'm having a difficulty with a certain technique, or in a piece I'm having a difficulty doing something musical, I need to incorporate that into my practice and make sure that I'm including materials that will help me improve overall, not just maintenance materials or some routine that someone told me to practice, but actually stuff that I need to actually improve. It kind of comes back to that idea of practicing is different than playing. You can't just play and expect to get better. You need to practice and problem solve to get better. The next topic is your intention to improve. And this is very connected to what I've been talking about, is that practicing is problem solving. And when you actually sit down to practice, you need to be problem solving. If you sit down and you play for an hour, but you're not solving any problems, then you won't get better really quickly. If you sit down, though, and you actually have the intention to improve and you're problem solving, that is way better practice time. I would rather my students practice for half an hour with the intention to improve, like focused intention. I'd rather they do that than practice for an hour with no intention. So I'd rather they practice 30 minutes than an hour, depending on the quality level. So I want them to steer towards quality and steer towards problem solving in their practicing, because practicing is different than playing. Okay, the next topic is maximum concentration and accuracy. This is a real big issue and comes back to that question of like people who practice for hours and hours but aren't improving. One thing I'll say is that if you're going to practice for hours and hours, make sure you take lots of breaks. So maybe you practice for 45 minutes and then you take a big break, you have some food or some juice or whatever, you relax, maybe do some stretches or something, and then you come back with a refreshed mind. Often, especially if you're practicing for hours and hours, but you're only like a beginner, then your ability to concentrate is probably not going to be there. You're probably going to drift into just playing rather than practicing. So then you're programming not the ideal muscle memory and things like that. We need to make sure our concentration is really high so that we're holding our hands properly, we're sitting properly, we're playing with nice musicality. There's a lot of things to think about, and as soon as you start getting even the slightest bit tired, you stop thinking about certain things. So maybe you'll focus on your technique, but you won't play with nice legato phrasing. Suddenly you'll be just kind of like not listening, but playing with good technique, but that's no good. Or you'll be playing with nice phrasing, but your technique will look awful, which won't develop your playing either. So the thing to understand about this is two factors. If you're going to practice a long time, you need to take breaks and make sure you're maintaining that high concentration level. The other thing you need to make sure, though, is that, or at least that you need to understand, is that when you're first starting out, your ability to concentrate on music will not be very high. Later on, it'll be much higher. It's like if you started reading German for the first time. At first, it'd be so taxing to just read a couple sentences in German, right? You'd have to be looking up each word, thinking really hard about what that means or the sentence structure. As you get more familiar with it, though, you'd be able to do paragraphs and paragraphs. So your ability to concentrate is connected to your level. And so when I start students, they only practice a very small amount, and we increase that amount of time they practice as they develop their skills, because their vocabulary and their concentration will be able to scale up along with their level. So maximum concentration, and I said also accuracy. So as you get tired, usually... Oh, Penny's barking. As you get tired, usually your ability to play really accurately goes down too. As you practice for hours and hours, you might stop thinking about that, or you might start being less precise about that. Or when you're playing your repertoire, you might start making mistakes, but you're like, oh, well, mistakes happen. I've been practicing a long time. But what if you practiced less time, but you made less mistakes? That's obviously better for you in general in terms of improving. I'm not saying mistakes are the end of the world or anything like that. They're not. They're a normal part of learning. But nevertheless, you want to keep your accuracy level high. Now, the last section is kind of funny. I put like relaxation plus ergonomics plus musical knowledge and appreciation. This has to do with the idea of blending different aspects of learning together, and whether your body or your mind can take that for long periods of time. Obviously, in terms of relaxation, this is actually something we need to practice. Like at the end of each phrase, you need to relax. It's something you actually can build into your muscle memory, relaxing while you play. And also, it's connected to concentration as well. You have to concentrate a little bit on relaxing at first until it becomes part of your muscle memory and part of the way that you play your instrument. Ergonomics, in terms of your body, really important as well. Playing properly and healthy is really important. If you practice for hours with bad ergonomics, you may get injured. So if you get injured by practicing for hours and hours, you might have to stop playing for a few months. That will not make you better. You need to be playing in a healthy way, in an ergonomic way. And therefore, you'll improve faster if you don't get an injury and you're playing in a healthy way. Now, there might be something, you might not know how musical something can actually be if your listening skills and music appreciation, this is in the form of, music history, music theory, research, attending concerts, listening to albums and videos, listening to other instruments, hearing how a violin can phrase something super beautifully, or the human voice can phrase something super beautifully. All of those things also contribute to your ability to improve at music. So sometimes when I hear that a beginner, for example, is practicing for hours, I often will tell them, like, maybe you could cut half an hour out of your practice time and just put that time into like listening to professional recordings. Maybe you're listening to the Bach violin partitas and while following along with the score. Even just that simple act of following along while listening to a high quality player will teach you what they turn that music notation into. They turn those little tiny, very structured looking notes into something so beautiful. And your ability to understand that is really important. Sometimes that is what's needed much more than more playing time. So dedicating time to musical appreciation and listening skills is really important. We could talk about this stuff for hours, but we have to move on here. Final topic is, how much time is enough time for practicing? And I get this question all the time, but the truth is that it just depends on so many variables. It depends on the level of the student. Of course, beginners should practice less than maybe an advanced player plays. Advanced players play more. But it also has to do with other factors. There's lifestyle. Like, how much time can you dedicate towards guitar before you like lose your friends and family? Like, or you get fired from your job. Of course, there's like a connection with your lifestyle. You have to find a happy medium that works with all the different factors in your life. Also depends if you're a hobbyist or what kind of ambition level you have, or if you're career focused. It also depends highly on how you organize your practice session. And I mentioned this before, that I have an article, and I'll link to it in the description, on how to structure your practice session. And to some extent, if you structure your practice session properly, you'll get an idea of how much time you need to practice, because you need to fit in all those things and then balance it with your lifestyle and your concentration and your intention to improve and your knowledge and your ergonomics and your health. So all the things I mentioned, along with how to structure your practice session, they all come together to form an idea for you personally about how much time you can practice. But I will say that if you need to reduce the amount of practice time, just aim for a higher quality level and you can improve. Some of my best students never practiced very much. Some of my best students only practiced for half an hour a day. As they got more advanced, they practiced much more, but even like just from the beginner to the intermediate stage, they went a long way with just practicing for half an hour a day, because they were consistent in their practicing. And not only just consistent in their practicing, but they practiced well, and they practiced with high concentration levels and accuracy. So they just improved at the same rate as the other students who practiced more, because they did all those things in a really focused way, and a really positive way. Of course, you have to enjoy your practicing. If you don't enjoy practicing for hours and hours, don't practice for hours and hours. You need to find a way of making practicing enjoyable, because I'm sorry to say, it's like, it really is a lifetime project. There'll never be a point where you say, like, I've made it. There'll never be a point where you say, I get to stop practicing. That will never happen. It's a lifelong thing. We just keep doing it. So making sure it's enjoyable and it works with your lifestyle and works with the people around you and your personal situation is really important. So I never answer people with an absolute number on how long they should practice. It's really taking this discussion we've had today and thinking about your life and how you enjoy your practice sessions and how you've learned to enjoy it, and then making it work. It's much more about that. So I hope you found that kind of informative. I wanted to make the video because I get asked the question so much. There's probably way more I could have included, way more topics, way more information, but I just wanted to kind of try my best to like put it into a contained video and get you thinking about it at least. So I hope that's gives you some things to think about and helps you possibly practice less and improve faster, or practice the same amount but improve quite a bit faster.